Growing up in the 1970s and 80s meant navigating the world with a rusted bicycle and a high-altitude jump. This was a landscape of zero helmets, plywood ramps, and an entire generation of children operating without a safety net. Parenting looked like a survival experiment, where the only hard rule of civilization was simple: get inside before the streetlights turned orange. This raises a central question for developmental psychology. How did a childhood defined by physical danger and absent supervision forge such a resilient mindset in the adults of today? The answer lies in the way the brain adapts to pressure. Research suggests that forced autonomy, being repeatedly placed in situations where no adult is available, actually rewires the prefrontal cortex to prioritize independence. At MindUnlock, we decode the hidden architecture of human behavior. Hit subscribe if you're ready to look under the hood of the survival instinct. We start with a psychological audit of playground trauma, examining how friction builds a stronger mind. Early playground engineering prioritized toughness, serving as a developmental training ground. These metal structures were intentionally rugged, designed to build strength and coordination through friction. Metal slides baked in the July sun functioned as thermal punishment ramps. If you went down, you learned an immediate, skin-searing lesson about heat and friction. The merry-go-round operated on a principle of rotational trauma. It forced kids to manually calibrate their grip against centrifugal force, normalizing high-velocity physical risks. This graph illustrates anti-fragility. Unlike systems that break under stress, anti-fragile systems gain capacity after a stress event. These spikes represent struggles that permanently raise baseline resilience. When we remove stress, installing padded edges, the line stays flat, leaving the system fragile and untested. Eliminating the hard fall onto gravel protected the body, but it also removed the primary mechanism that teaches the brain how to process fear. The era's threshold for acceptable risk reached its peak with lawn darts. These were weapons-grade projectiles, heavy metal spikes designed to be launched through the air. In the 1980s, products lacked the extensive warning labels we see today. Society operated on personal accountability, assuming if you engaged with something obviously dangerous, the consequences were yours to manage. Having to manually evaluate physical threats in the backyard upgraded the brain's situational awareness. You couldn't rely on a sticker to tell you it was hot or sharp. You had to pay attention. This creates a unique threshold for anxiety. When a child normalizes launching metal spikes, a typical adult inconvenience fails to trigger a significant stress response. Daily hydration meant drinking from a sun-baked garden hose. The first surge of water was scalding, flavored with industrial rubber and dirt, a microbiological roulette. This constant adaptation to discomfort, accepting the rubber pipe soup because you were thirsty, cultivated a high baseline for mental flexibility. This explains why minor modern stressors, like slow Wi-Fi or a delayed delivery, don't rattle this generation. If you've survived the garden hose, your cortisol levels don't spike over a weak signal. We have to ground this in a statistical reality called survivorship bias. This diagram shows how we only hear the stories from the kids who successfully navigated the hazards. We don't hear from the ones who didn't make it through the lack of supervision. The survivors were so aware of the dangers that they became the generation that invented helicopter parenting, determined to shield their own children from the risks they had endured. This environment cultivated defensive pessimism, a strategy of simulating everything that could go wrong to avoid destruction. Because these survivors spent years manually calculating physical survival, they transfer that same risk calibration to the modern world. Office politics or systemic chaos feel entirely manageable when compared to childhood near-death stunts. This isn't a superpower, but a highly effective trauma response. It's a form of healthy dysfunction that allows for extreme calm in the middle of a crisis. Generation X is the bridge generation. They are the only generation alive that is fluent in both the analog and the digital worlds. And bridges don't get monuments. They just hold the weight quietly, relentlessly, without asking for recognition. It reminds us that true anti-fragility is never forged in a vacuum of perfect safety. It is only built by learning how to function calmly inside the friction. Modern life has a very difficult time breaking you when you've already survived upper body Darwinism and backyard weaponry.
If your childhood was an unregulated experiment, type survivor in the comments. Like and subscribe to Mind Unlock for more insights into the hidden architecture of the mind. See you in the next one.